Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Does Metal Have Soul podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Levi Clay, and I am here with my glamorous... It looks like you have a tooth on your head. My tooth-headed assistant, Melisa Kelly. How's it going?
Who says I don't? I'm fine. I'm a little tired today, I'm not going to lie. We had a busy day yesterday and then we did a gig last night, and honestly...
We did half a gig last night.
It wasn't like super stressful, but it was the organisation level of like toddlers boxing. And
Why?
Just...
What happened?
You were there. We turned up. There was no sound engineer in a 300 cap venue. There's 2 instruments and a vocal and a new mixing desk that none of the staff understand how to use. Because of course they don't, because they're minimum wage workers and they don't need to be known how to do that.
To be fair, I didn't know how to use it. I looked at it and I'm like, this is one of those big complicated digital desks where you press buttons and things automatically move.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? Some sound engineering company, they've reached out to an events company, they've sold them a lemon in something that they do not need, and the venue's not been any the wiser. Yeah. And now they're equipped with equipment that regular musicians would struggle to use.
Yeah. And we have made it very clear with every booking that we've had in that venue, we need a sound engineer. We need a sound engineer. This isn't a thing that we can do on our own for, the reasons that Mel said there. We can't just walk out the front whilst I'm playing piano, Mel's playing the guitar, and check that the levels between them are okay. Especially as we're on an elevated stage. If you're playing in a corner of a pub, maybe, but this is an elevated stage. So the fact that there's no sound engineer is just beyond a joke. But the sad thing is like, we're the things that will get cut in that scenario.
Oh, 100%, 100%. They'll go, this isn't really working. It looks unprofessional. I wonder what the issue is. I know musicians are the problem.
Yeah. But no, because they'll look at us specifically and be like, well, every other Tom, Dick and Harry that comes in and plays acoustic guitar songs, he doesn't need a sound engineer. So why do you guys need a sound engineer? It sounds like you're the problem here. It's like, you've got this big, beautiful venue with really nice equipment. There's a big grand piano on the stage, but you don't have a sound. When the sound engineer did show up after nearly an hour, it turned out he wasn't even a sound. He wasn't even a sound engineer. His next job was to go off and fix a TV somewhere. Like, he said he might be able to get sound coming out, but he can't do sound.
Yeah.
He can't, do levels and EQ. Yeah. So we'll turn us on and hope for the best. And just so comically unprofessional. I guess it's unprofessional for us to just sit on the stage for the best part of an hour, smiling, being like, well, we're still invoicing for the full amount, so who cares?
Barbara. Absolutely not. And I said this to Levi in the car on the way home. And I'm sure some of the people that watch our podcast are actual gigging musicians.
Yeah.
I don't think as gigging grassroots musicians, you get to have high standards for a lot of things sometimes, because a lot of the time you go into venues and they don't have high standards. So it is really hard. But there's certain things where I'm like, no, that is a line in the sand. And when I was just starting at a venue many moons ago, I was much more inexperienced. I probably didn't have the right to have the attitude I did. But I went in and I said, is there the sound engineers here? Because it was a huge venue. There was no way I could do it myself. And they're like, no, but there's like one of those mixy things. It's lying in the back somewhere. I don't know where the wires are, but if you want to. And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know what's going on, but you either get someone in here, do it. That's not my job. I don't get paid enough. And I probably could have done it, to be honest, because, you get good at getting these things, and that's the compromise, isn't it? You get good at it, so you just go, nah, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves again.
Yeah.
No, I'm done. I'm done as a grassroots musicians constantly placating and compromising the incompetency of other fucking venues and people who claim to make living off of live music who couldn't give a fuck about it. No, sorry. Ugh.
Oh, that was a serious one. I'm going to actually spin off here and do the piano thing now.
I thought you meant in your chair.
No, I'm going to do the piano thing now. We have a sort of half sponsor for the podcast. It's actually just somebody that sponsors the content that I make, and this comes under the banner of content that I make. So it just felt like a good place, because you were talking about being out and gigging, and talking about piano and guitar. Yeah. This is us playing. We do duo stuff with piano, vocals, and guitar and harmonies, which is just a little bit different from what you normally get when you go out and you see music in a pub. I am not a particularly proficient piano player, getting better every day.
He's very good.
Mel considers me to be much better than I consider myself to be, which is nice. But I draw this to your attention because I've actually only been playing the piano for like 3 years, and I'm out gigging and playing and making money.
Because Levi bought a piano to impress me when we first started dating.
Yeah, I couldn't play it, but I play it now. When I started playing the piano, I used Pianote as my main source of practice and study. And I think that if you've watched any of Pianote's content on YouTube, you'll know that it's absolutely fantastic. They're very entertaining, very informative, very educational.
Yeah.
And when you watch their videos, they offer you a free 7-day trial for the Pianote website. I can go better than that. So if you check out the link in the description, you can get a free 30-day trial on Pianote. And I can't be clear enough about this, guys. Anyone watching this, please sign up for a completely free 30-day trial, no obligation on your part. Even if in the end you decide that it's not of huge use to you, it may be of use to you. I'm not trying to sell you on that, but it's a free trial. And we get paid a decent amount for every single person that signs up for a free trial. So it's a great way to help support the podcast.
Also, I would
you may also fall in love.
Well, I think Lisa Whit. Is it Lisa Whit?
Yeah, Whit.
Whit.
Lisa Cool Whip.
Listen, Scottish people say Whit, okay?
What?
Fuck you. Lisa Whit is fantastic. She's actually really like, normally when Levi's tried to get me to look at all of these like educational things, I'm like, I would learn, but this person is fucking annoying, so no. But she's really lovely and she explains things wonderfully. Also, it is a new sponsory thing. It is actually the first thing on my channel that will be properly a sponsored thing.
Yeah.
Despite the fact I've turned down about 5 or 6 different companies when they're like, hey, would you like to be sponsored by this bag of cat's teeth? Sell your audience on just complete trash.
Yeah, no, it's hard doing the YouTube thing because I don't take all that many sponsors on my channel because it has to be relevant to the content that I'm making. And Piano was just such a good one. Like I made a big review of Piano and I gave them a pretty good review on my YouTube channel, and then they ended up reaching out and we've built a really good relationship. We've been working with each other for almost 3 years now, and they are so supportive and want to help me. You know, like I say, they pay people to sign up for a free trial. They pay me for you to sign up for a free trial, which is so cool. And there are so many other websites that I've talked with, but ultimately I don't want to work with them because I don't rate the content they make. I don't rate the educational material. The reason this educational material appeals to you is because ultimately, you know, you're a relative beginner on the piano in terms of like training, study.
Oh, as far as training, some would argue that even in vocals, like.
But you know, when I'm looking at a lot of the piano content, like I'm sure we'll mention Noah in my when we talk about practice, I'm looking at really advanced stuff because I'm play and I'm interested in really advanced music. But piano is more suited to that beginner. Excellent quality videos. Anyway, you go and check them out. Go check out the link in the description. I'm sure you'll find something you enjoy.
Yeah, it's really good.
Cool. So, Metalhead Musings?
Okay. Hang on. Okay, we could not have got 2 Metalhead Musings by pure accident today, because of course one of them's very like fun and serious about caring about things to do with music and blah blah blah.
Sure.
And the other one, of course, I've chosen something that's dreadful nonsense.
Well, you do the dreadful one, then I'll read out the other one.
Oh, you want the dreadful one first?
Yeah, always.
Okay.
Always start with a shit sandwich and then follow it up with a sticky toffee pudding.
It's wild.
Oh, okay.
It's wild. It was on a Fall in Reverse video, and it's a heartbreaker because it's Duncan Cheney, W4W, comments or has commented on my videos since day dot.
Oh, I know this comment, yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I think you told me about this during the week.
Oh, maybe. And unfortunately, it happens sometimes where you'll build a little rapport with someone in the comment section, but the minute you say something that they don't agree with, it's almost like they go from being like, yeah, that's cool, my dude. I really agree. I think that's great. Also, I'm going to set fire to your house. You know, there's no middle ground. Duncan Cheney says, that I peony. Ah, idiotic response. React. Shut the fuck up. What?
Yeah, it's the most unhealthy thing in the world. Like we had on my Discord this week, a couple of guys in there had like a real butting of heads and a real falling out. It got to the point where I had to step in like daddy and be like, right, that's enough, boys. Stop. Is this a place full of grown adults or is this children?
Children.
Yeah, children. But people give the feedback on my Discord. They like the fact that there are so many people of so many different walks of life, and we understand that we have different worldviews, we have different political ideas, different religious ideas, different musical ideas, and that's never a reason to be like, well, I'm not interested in seeing what you have to say about something because you think differently about me on things. It's so unbelievably healthy to listen to people or be able to listen to people say something negative about things that you love and
Yes.
realise that it shouldn't change your view of that person. It's entirely healthy. And I get the feeling it's not going to go that way on your YouTube channel this week because you've done another falling in reverse reaction and you weren't very complimentary of it. What have people got coming?
So I like to try and bulk record at the same time, and I still have to do some more for Patreon, actually. It's just reminded me. But I did Lacuna Coil.
Most beige band in the world.
I have some opinions. But I did a couple of other ones, so it's not just like my channel's become the Fallen in Reverse channel, because I didn't want that. But everyone in the comment section, and of course I have been complimentary to Fallen in Reverse, and I don't take that back, even if he is a shithead. Point is, like, I've seen some good things. However, everyone in the comment section was like, oh, but you've not even got to the real Reimagined Genius yet. You need to go and see his version of Gangster's Paradise. And I warned people in the comment section, and I was like, I don't think that's a good idea, because I do like Coolio's Gangster's Paradise as an extension of Stevie Wonder.
So I was going to jump in and say, do not tell me to go and check out Ronnie Radke's version of Gangster's Paradise if you can't tell me what Gangster's Paradise is taken from.
Thank you. So that's, and of course I was, at the time, I was a young person. It was absolutely marketed towards me, and I really did enjoy the track. But again, I already had heard Stevie Wonder and he was my hero, so it was an extension of that. When I tell you that this version is the most dog shit cover I have heard in such a long time. I unpack it all in the reaction. He's basically made the song all about himself. Coolio is there, but I'm sorry, that's not a benchmark of whether or not someone is like, tick, that's really great. Point being is, it was so bad. It was so bad. And I could have peeled all my skin off like an orange and then ran through the streets as a muscle person on fire.
Super meat girl.
To the point, right? To the point where I almost paused the video and gave up. I almost paused the video and put it on Patreon because I was like, I'm not listening to the rest of this. This is fucking dog shit.
Nice. But you did listen to Ghost and you really enjoyed
Oh,
Ghost.
I listened to Ghost and it was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Which is going to tie into Alice Cooper, someone we're going to bring up later. So tune into Mel's channel for those reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to pull up that other?
I do.
So to me, one of the interesting things about what we're doing on this podcast is we are talking about metal. And I understand that it's a broad term that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And some people would even argue, why do you even need to know what metal is and who invented metal? And I totally get all of that. Like, ultimately, as you can tell, we've been here for about 10 minutes. We've not really talked about metal yet because the subject that we talk about is really just a vehicle for us to have conversation. And hopefully you guys tune in and enjoy us talking about things. And maybe we get you to think about some things. Maybe we remind you of some cool music to go and check out or to go and listen to again. Maybe we introduce you to some cool music for you to go and learn about. But I am also always really interested in people's chat, especially from the perspective of people that lived through the time.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I often say this, but I consider myself, a real nerd when it comes to the history of music. I love it. I love just learning about the history of music.
Nerd.
And that provides me with a very broad view of a thing that happened. I understand some wider context because I can see things from this broad context. I can learn about all the things that were going on, and you can see things from like this massively drawn out third person perspective.
Sure.
But it's also very interesting to hear the perspectives of people who had the boots on the ground at the time. Now, of course, in those situations, they remember things fondly. They remember, with the rose tinted glasses of being there, and it's a different perspective. It's not always the most accurate perspective, but people's personal experience and interpretation is always really interesting, because while I can understand about the culture and what was going on historically, politically around these things and why things happened the way they did, it's not the same as having somebody tell you how they felt at the time.
Yeah, of course.
Which is cool. So
yeah.
I'm gonna read this. So this came from Mad Jock IG5BV. Mad Jock says, interesting chat, also very entertaining. Sorry, long post ahead. I just hope that it makes sense. If anything seems as clear as mud, do say and I'll try to correct. As an old rocker or metalhead or prog head, I do find it amusing at how folks try to work out what is metal and what is hard rock. A band like Deep Purple was simply seen as a hard rock band. They kind of got roped into the heavy metal genre due to folks who loved metal in the later 70s, also liked Purple and could see a connection in the energy and musicality. Purple would never consider themselves metal. I was just a tad too young to be an actual fan when the first Deep Purple albums came out, although I really liked the singles that I heard on the radio and saw on Top of the Pops. When I got into Priest, a band that was always happy to be called metal, I still loved the early 70s stuff. I would say that Rainbow was metal and definitely influenced so many metal artists even today. Many artists that are seen as metal got the honour due to the fact that many of their fans identified as metal fans. For instance, Thin Lizzy would regularly be seen on the back of denim jackets along with Rush, Deep Purple, Motorhead and loads of others. People just jumped to the conclusion that certain bands were metal because us metal fans liked them. Yeah. On another topic, I find myself going to see less heritage bands these days, partly due to finances and also partly due to many of them being sadly past their sell-by date. There are loads of terrific bands in hard rock, metal, prog and blues, my favourite genres, yet struggling to get folks to leave their homes to see them at small prices. If we want the scene to continue, it is us fans who should go and see more newer bands. Couldn't agree with you more on, well, actually I can't agree with you on the first part because I wasn't there, but I love that perspective. Couldn't agree with you more on that second part. I hate heritage or legacy bands with a burning passion, because when Metallica announce a new tour with ridiculous tour prices, or even the Black Sabbath thing, the ticket prices on that are so high that people are going to spend 6 months worth of their music budget, if you want to call it that, to get a ticket to go and see that thing. And then because of that, I can't go and see this, I can't go to that because I spent all of my money on a Black Sabbath ticket. And it's the same with bands when they release, deluxe collector's edition versions of their album. And you as the consumer are like, oh, well, I've got to spend my money on the new Metallica collector's edition because it says Metallica on it, and if I don't do that, then I won't have the collector's edition. So now unfortunately I just need to stream all of the music for free. I can't give small bands any money. Like we distribute the money that we have to spend on music in such bad ways in terms of like who it benefits in the end. Like we have a new single. I say we, it's you, but like I'm trying to push it. It's the business. And we are now advertising that on Spotify using Spotify's advertising function. And I can tell you guys, about 30p?
For the US it's 26 and for the UK it's 30.
30, okay, cool. So 26p or 26 cents?
P.
Okay, 26 pence, which is about what? 40 cents. That's what it costs us every time somebody clicks on the ad to listen to the track. So Spotify pays 0.001% of a penny for each play that we get. But if we want you to listen to a track, it costs us 40p just to get you to 40 cents just for you to listen to the track. We pay that for you to listen to the track. Yeah.
It's total dog shit, and I wish it were different. But it's kind of like there was a conversation had not long ago, maybe a year and a half or so, because Gregory Porter, the artist, and I told you about it, Gregory Porter decided that he wasn't releasing new albums onto Spotify. He was only going to release them as CD and vinyl, which is such a bold move, especially as an
Taylor
artist.
did it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Especially as an artist of Gregory's size, because I'm sure very much like Taylor, more so with Taylor, that's a lot of coordination to get that thing out to people, especially considering some people don't even have the ability to play the thing.
Sure.
But he commented on the fact that it's just become so insane to try and make money at music. Yeah. And if someone of his caliber who's selling out, the Hydro whenever he's here, has to struggle to make money from music, because he can't, like, the radio will play it, sure, but it's not the same thing anymore.
Yeah, no, sure.
It's just bananas. And now you've got like Jamiroquai are going to be in Glasgow soon, and I really wanted to go. £290 a ticket, and I'm like, no, not a chance in hell. Yeah,
it's absurd, and Gregory can do that, and Taylor Swift can do that because it steers into the power that they have in terms of purchasing, influence of purchase, because all the Taylor fans are going to buy the physical. All the Gregory Porter's fans are going to buy the physical. But we can't do that. We can't be like, we've put a new single out, but the only way you can get it is you have to buy it on a CD from us.
No.
That's career suicide.
Absolutely. Charlie Manson from Garbage was chatting about it, and she talked about this 5, 6, 7 years ago, and she talked about how it was going to be a crime spree, and the fact that you're going to get to a stage where the only way to succeed in music, as any kind of band, would be to buy consciousness. That's the only way. And big artists will be able to buy consciousness of everyone, and little artists will only be able to buy a tiny piece of consciousness. Yeah. But it will no longer be about who's the best artist, who's the most sparkly and amazing, who can afford to buy enough consciousness.
You should take great pride, if you have listened to any of Melisa's music and you enjoy it, you should take great pride in the fact that you listen to independent artists. because it makes a difference. If more people took pride in the fact that they weren't just listening to the shit that gets shoveled down their throat by record labels, independent artists would have a much easier time of making music. Like, I always thought that back in the day, when I put music out, I knew that when I was selling those CDs, that's how I made money. But outside of that, I was going to have to give the music away for free on Spotify. And my music is up on Spotify for free. But it's so much darker than that, actually, because, that stuff doesn't do well because no one can find it. Actually, if you want people to find it, you need to pay Spotify for people to listen to your music. That's what we're now doing. We are now paying Spotify so people will listen to your music. And that in the hopes that they find something that they really enjoy and keep listening to it.
And that's the key, because there's going to be people who go into my music and they don't like it. And I'm not in the least bit offended, because I understand, especially for people who watch my videos, that they probably predominantly listen to a lot of music that would be nowhere close to what I make. And I get that. It's just bananas that you should expect. And it is expect, because if you try to not play the game, if you go, well, I'm not going to go as a grassroots musician, I'm not going to go on Spotify, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that and I'm not submitting my music here, you are almost guaranteed you're fucked.
Yes.
You're fucked. No one's going to hear your music. If you don't play the game, and they know that, you're going nowhere. No one's going to hear it. And that's deeply frustrating. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of days, as you know, where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to retrain as a plumber. I've had enough of this. But unfortunately, I'm caught between that weird place of, I'm a shite business person. Levi will tell you he's the business person. But I am a good creative. And I want to create art because I want to connect with people and I want to express myself. But I'm just in the worst possible time to do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the reality of what we do as musicians, educators and entertainers is we when we give away stuff for free, we are essentially having to say, did you enjoy that? Please contribute.
Makes me want to vomit.
Yeah, of course. I didn't think that I was going to find myself in a situation where I would need to pay a company like Spotify to be able to even have the opportunity to say to you, please. But that's where we are. But yeah, if you like what we do and you want to support us, you can do that by going and joining Mel's Patreon page. You can join my Patreon page. You do the piano free trial via the link in the description. All these things help.
And we're going to stop ranting now. It's just you picked a subject that I could literally do a 16-hour
sure.
Ken Burns-esque documentary on and bore the living shit out of everyone.
So let's just briefly talk about something more positive then. Let's talk about practice, because I like to slot a little bit about practice in every week.
And I feel guilty about it.
Yeah, of course. How's your piano practice been this week? Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's not just practice. You know what it is? It's teaching and it's accountability. It's having a teacher or a mentor and having accountability. If you are struggling in your practice, you're struggling to get better on your instrument, or at anything. It doesn't just apply to an instrument. If you're struggling to get better in the area that you want to get better in, having some accountability is really, really good for that. Really good for that. So I obviously have a Discord server, and on there I like to have my Patreon supporters try and hold each other accountable for where they are in their practice. They need to make sure they're hitting their goals. They're putting in their time and doing the actual practice. And I make them do that. I encourage them to do that. And yet I'm not doing the same thing with my personal practice, my piano practice.
I love that your Discord is for people very, very kindly and professionally keeping each other accountable for their practice. And mine is just people sharing memes of cakes and Subway being disgusting.
Okay, so that's what my Discord is supposed to be. What it is another thing entirely.
Oh, okay, that makes me feel slightly better. I was like, we're idiots.
Yeah. But I do have like a private section on there, which is for members of my Patreon that are on the weekly guided practice routines here, and they do keep each other accountable. They do like, how's everybody getting on?
That's really cool, though.
It's really cool. It's like the best feeling in the world. But realistically, I want hundreds of people doing that, because I cannot stress this enough. It helps you get better by having an accountability buddy. And so for me,
accountability
buddy. It's a South Park.
Oh, okay.
Okay. As an accountability buddy when they think when they send him off to gay camp.
I haven't seen enough of South Park, and when you talk about Butters, I'm like, am I Butters?
Yeah, you are. So my practice this week has been focusing on that accountability side of things. Like we talked about it last week, like putting in all of the practice, doing the things every day. But Noah, my mentor, last week gave me a questionnaire thing a digital questionnaire thing that I have to fill in every Sunday to update on what my practice has been. Areas that I've seen major growth in, areas that I'm struggling with. And it helps your teachers to make better content for you as teachers, make sure your lesson plans are going on. But also, it gives you that added layer of pressure. Oh, I know I'm going to get in trouble if I don't fill out my accountability questionnaire,
Sure.
so I need to put some practice in. And I went to fill that out this morning, and it was like the first time that I filled that out. And the last section was upload a video of, you know, whatever your task was, whatever you've been working on, so I can see how you're getting on with it. So I had to run downstairs this morning, like Mel will have heard me running over to the piano going... keep playing, and I'm not in a position to be...
I've heard that a million times, that's me being your accountability.
Silly and basic as stuff like that is, having that accountability makes me better at that.
Sure.
Because it would be so easy for me to have learned to do a thing on the Monday. How I was doing that last week is very different to how I'm doing it now, because I'm yes, there's a melody there that I'm sticking to and there's a chord progression, but ultimately how I'm interpreting that is there's a degree of improvisation happening there, and forcing yourself to actually practice that is so important. And I just think accountability is a great way of making sure that that gets done. So
sure. I mean, I think me and practice are enemies, full long-term enemies.
yeah, you are.
And I don't lie about it. And certainly, I think there's lots of ways to sort of engage with practice. And I think sometimes, and I am that person who's guilty of it, which is to kind of go, okay, well, you know, I'm feeling motivated today, so I'm going to do everything. And also I want to be, you know, astonishing in the next 5 days. And then you don't see those results and you find it really arduous and boring. So then you just like, oh, fuck me, I'm going to go away and do something else just now. So yeah, having people that are like, oh, it's okay, buddy, like that happens. Are you having a bad day? Like, here's the thing that I think also sharing the stories of other people, because see, when it comes to songwriting, I could songwrite every day, all day, for the rest of time, but sometimes you get quite low in it. Watching videos of other people talking about songwriting and the things that make them passionate, all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going downstairs right now to write something.
Yes, but that's you going downstairs to do rather than to practice.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think you and we both have very abusive relationships with practice, but they're in very, very different ways.
Yeah.
My abusive relationship that I have with practice is like, you know, like the Russian gymnast child who is forced to get up every morning at 6 o'clock and has to go through the routine, but it's so they can get pushed towards the greatness that they want. Whereas your abusive relationship with practice is like, I'm just going to sit on the couch and eat 6 bags of Doritos. Like,
get fucked. Get fucked. Because that's not even close to true. I will tell you what it looks like.
Go on, Ed.
I am a creative person. And I know a lot of people say that and they don't actually know what the fuck that means. You know what being a creative person is? I, by the end of an 8-hour period, could write you a song, write you a play, give you 4 ideas for new YouTube channels. It's limitless. Limitless. One of the things I used to say when people would threaten to do things like steal music from me, I'd be like, there's more talent where that came from, bitch. And that sounds really arrogant, but the truth of the matter is, it's just always creating, and unfortunately, that means...
See, what I was going for there was a lovely little short that we could have clipped, but instead, Mel had to get really angry and defensive. If you actually rewind that and analyse everything that she just said there, everything she just said there highlighted exactly what I'd said about her, which is she's really good at making things, but she's not good at practice. And when you point out that she's not good at practice, she just gets angry at you.
I don't just get angry.
How many times have you thrown a toaster at me?
What? I've never once thrown a toaster at you.
Okay, right, let's move on and do the news.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, news. I can't help it that I'm wired like, I don't even know.
Like an angry Scot.
Okay, the first one's maybe a teensy bit indulgent, but you know what? I don't care. WWE 2K25 soundtrack features a surprising amount of modern metal music.
Okay.
Yay!
Yeah, I did. I saw this news story, but I didn't look at who was on it, nor did I really care. It's weird. Like, music in video games is a tough one in this day and age, because unless the music is crafted specifically for the video game, i.e. composed music rather than synced music, for me at least, if I'm playing a game that's got synced music in it, I'm just going to go straight into the menu, turn the music down, and then I can put on Spotify on my PlayStation and just listen to what I want to while I'm playing the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we talked about that with like FIFA and games like that as well. Metal Suck says, heavy metal and professional wrestling have long had a deep connection with one another. Wrestlers use metal as their entrance music. Some musicians have gotten in the ring to compete, and sometimes bands will take to the stage to play a superstar important match. And they just go on to talk about how there's Poppy, there's Gojira, there's Spirit Box, Knocked Loose, Architects, which was one we did on the channel, Baby Metal, which was cool to see. It was Baby Metal and Electric Callboy, which we did on a stream one time, and I was confused.
I will say this, the kind of upside of that is, this is going to be a deep cut, a lot of people can be influenced by video games to push them towards music that they end up really liking and enjoying. While I'm not interested in the music that's in WWE 2K25, I'm not going to play it, so it's irrelevant to me unless I get it free on PlayStation Plus, in which case I'll probably give it a wee go. Point is, it's not relevant to me, but to young people that are playing games like that, actually that is quite cool, because I think back, there'll be a lot of people watching this podcast now that will have played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater when they were younger.
Yeah.
And they will think back to a lot of the great songs that were on Tony Hawk's
Primus.
Pro Skater. Or for me, I played a lot of Crazy Taxi when I was younger.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, Crazy Taxi had some really good music in it. Most specifically, it had a bunch of Offspring songs in there. Offspring songs from the album Ixnay on the Hombre. And the Offspring would go on to be one of my favourite bands for a long period of time after really, really getting into that game. So, yeah, okay, that is cool. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that is weird. Like, you look back at some of the stuff that you would have played back then, or things you would have consumed that had a soundtrack, and they become like a timestamp in time for you, for your memories.
Sure.
And they are usually genre specific. And yeah, there's just going to be a bunch of kids, young people, who now Gojira is going to just be part of their lexicon of music, which is just super cool.
Right, what else you got for me?
Okay, this one's a more Levi-centric one. Symphony X will probably release long-awaited new album in 2026.
2026, fucking February in 2025. The last album came out like 7 fucking years ago.
Well, it's going to have all the cool stuff. During this year's 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise, Symphony X bassist Mike LaPond, which is great, spoke to Metal Anthology about the progress of the songwriting sessions for the band's long-awaited follow-up to Underworld. Was that the one that you have?
Underworld's a good album.
Listened to that?
Is that the one I have? I have all of them.
Excuse me. It goes on to just say that they are doing big symphonic stuff again with
Shock
it.
horror.
They're going to try and include as many elements as the fans like. They do have a small discussion about whether or not pandering to your audience is the right thing to do in songwriting. Yeah. And I think yes and no.
Yeah, it depends what you're out. It depends what your goal is. If you want to make money, pander to your audience.
Yeah. And then Michael Romeo, who's the guitarist and the main songwriter, said that these songs are going to have no filter. It's not bad. It's not garbage. It's got at least a chance to get your ear. And I'm like, what a strange thing to say about it.
Yeah. It's the unfortunate thing with Symphony X is, to me, they're like one of my favourite. They're probably my favourite metal band. I love Symphony X so much, but they are always so fucking poorly marketed. They are always on terrible labels who do not do a good job of marketing them. They in turn do not do a good job of marketing themselves. So they're kind of like an underdog on the metal scene. They just they're self saboteurs is how I would describe that band.
Are they well thought of though in the general metal community? They're
relatively unknown in the wider metal community. Yeah. They're definitely thought of well in the prog metal community, definitely. Okay. But since the last Symphony X record came out, Michael has released, I think, two solo albums. I think they both came out after Underworld. And they had vocals on, really strangely. So they are essentially Symphony X albums with a different singer. And they were okay, not bad. They were so poorly marketed that no one really knows about them. I reached out to the label to talk about doing an interview with Romeo about it, and I'm somebody that's featured his music on my channel multiple times. Got videos explaining music theory related to Symphony X. I at the time had and played a Michael Romeo signature comparison guitar. Like, I'm a huge fan, big influence on me, and the label and Romeo were up for it. They were like, yeah, this sounds cool, let's do it. And I said, okay, well, let's organise and we'll hook up on Zoom. It probably would have been Skype back then, and we'll do an interview, and we'll plug the album. And they came back and were like, oh, no, Michael doesn't do video interviews. What? Yeah, you can do a telephone interview with him. Yeah, you phone him and you'll talk about stuff, and then you
explain what a phone does.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to. That doesn't make good content
You're
for
a
people.
YouTube
So
creator.
they're not going to watch me talk to somebody when they can only hear the person.
Just put up photographs of dogs and
Yeah.
just have Michael
Aye.
Romeo.
Yeah, just or just put up pictures of turds to highlight what a dog shit way of marketing yourself that is.
Do not
So-
steal my content.
Yeah, so I declined and was like, I tell you what, I know Symphony X have got like this medieval vibe going on, but when you want to bring your ideas of how to market yourself out of the fucking 1600s, come back and I'll happily have Michael on my channel. But no, I'm not doing a telephone interview with him.
Oh, damn. You're so spicy sometimes. Like people will say to me that they think that I'm quite spicy, and I'm like, I am a wilting wallflower.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a bit.
Telephone interview. This was in like 2022
Oh, really? Was that
Yeah.
recent? You're a YouTuber. Why on earth would... you know what's fine.
because they think they've got an old school view of how you do things. And it's like, all right, like, good luck with that.
Is it not also an element of, which I can't stand, which is a sort of, but we're the talent and what we say goes, and we want this specific, very annoying thing
Yeah.
to put you out a little bit.
Yeah. And unfortunately, my response to that is, well, I am also the talent because I'm the one with the big platform. You're the one with a thing to sell, and I'm the one with the audience that wants that can, give you that opportunity to sell it. I'm not asking you to pay me. I'm just, let's have a bit of mutually beneficial shit going on here.
Work diva.
Yeah. All right, one more.
It does make me happy when you get spicy with people. I'm like, because it's not me. Lacuna Coil, ferociously powerful sleepless empire, a career best. Rapidly approaching 30 years together since their early days. Proof, if you need it, comes in the shape of their 10th album, Sleepless Empire, a ferocious powerhouse of an album that sees the band locked in tightly and bringing even more aggression to their music.
I'm going to stop you here. Right? What? I leave you in charge of going and finding news stories, okay?
What did I do?
I just said, I leave you in charge of going and finding news stories. And you've chosen to bring a story about a mid-tier band at best. When they were at the very peak of their careers, they were mid-tier on festivals at best. Why do we give a shit? Let's move on. We don't care that Lacuna Coil have an album coming out.
Okay, but for realsies, I read the article and
Sure.
I was like, because I've just recorded the one that will be on the
Yeah.
channel soon. I think it's called I Hope You're Dead or something like that. And I watched it and I was like, oh man, like I feel like a bad woman because I talk shit a little bit about Christina and some of the sort of weird things she said in an interview. And I've watched her music expecting to be like, she's a queen, never mind, I'm an arsehole. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, that was... In fact, I literally say in the video, nah. Which I'm sure will go down incredibly terribly.
You know what? Their 6 fans are going to be fucking furious. The 6 people in the world that are actually really passionate about Lacuna Coil are going to be really, really upset by that.
Yeah, but
Jesus.
there's always commenters.
Jesus! Jesus!
Send for the man! I'm distracted now. What was I going to say? Do.
None of it matters. Let's move on and do the main chunk of what we do on this podcast.
Okay.
Which is talking about bands. So we're not mixing the format up a little bit, but there's this kind of I was talking to Mel about it in the house earlier. There's this dilemma that comes up with the format, and much to the the comments that people brought up in the Metalhead Musings, metal bands change their sound over time. And when metal became more popular, bands would end up steering into that sound. Maybe they helped to pioneer it in the early years, but we don't think of those early albums as being particularly metal. Maybe they become more metal later on. Deep Purple last week, great example of that. I didn't start out particularly metal, but they definitely got heavier as time went on.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be a case of people identifying with it and maybe them steering into it a little bit. But yeah, early Deep Purple, not really metal. But then it presents this problem where it's like, okay, well, we're talking about metal in 1969, 1970, 1971, etc. There were bands that existed that were releasing music at this time who would go on to be prominent names that you would think of when you talk about metal, but at this stage they weren't particularly metal. So what do? Do we mention them now and then revisit them later when the albums are metal, chronologically, or do what I've decided that we're going to do, which is we'll mention these bands now, we'll talk about they existed at this time, and listen to what they sounded like back then, but then we'll cut to some of their bigger songs so you can get a feel for the direction that they went in. That make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, mainly because, so one of the bands that we're going to talk about today is the Scorpions, and we're going to talk about UFO. And with both of them, when you listen to their first albums, there's not really anything on there where you're like, oh, this is brilliant. This is top tier. It's cool, but not metal. But then
It's not
as they
metal.
go on, they end up having more songs that are a little bit more hard rock metal-y in sound. So shall we start out by talking about the Scorpions?
Sure. I don't think I've ever heard of them. Maybe
Okay.
I have. I'm not sure.
2 seconds.
Do 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 do
You're cutting this.
do 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 do. No, I'm not.
Okay, so the Scorpions, as per their Wikipedia article, are a German hard rock band formed in Hanover in 1965 by guitarist Rudolf Schenker. So the longest running and most successful lineup of the band includes Rudolf Schenker and some other people that aren't hugely important. So the band's only continuous member has been Rudolf Schenker. Now, I take interest in them for a couple of reasons. One, their original lead guitarist was Rudolf's brother, Michael Schenker. So Michael Schenker would go on to be in the band UFO, another band we're going to talk about. He's definitely one of the early shreddery type guys, or neoclassically rock metal-y guys.
Okay.
Shreddy doesn't really feel like the right word, but definitely, like, to this day, still very well thought of, iconic influence in the development of rock and metal. So Michael Schenker played with the band on their album Lonesome Crow, which we are going to talk about. But after Michael left, there was a gentleman by the name of Uli John Roth who joined the band.
David Lee Roth. Sorry.
So Uli John Roth, fabulously proficient guitar player, and we're going to listen to some of his work with the band.
He looks so happy.
He is. He's a really interesting guy in the sense that, like, you hear him play and you're like, oh, that's him. You know what I mean by that? Like, in a sound
it's
where you're like, yeah, recognisably him. But for whatever reason, he's just always been on the fringe of well-known. And that could be for a ton of reasons. Like, he did play in cool bands, but honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with, and like, there's this dark side of the music industry, of the guitar industry at least, and that is music instrument manufacturing, right? So Uli John Roth plays his own brand of guitars. I'm pretty sure they're the own brand of guitars. Yeah, there's Sky Guitar, and they're not a big company. Whereas if you play Ibanez guitars, they're going to market you to the world.
Right.
If you play Gibson guitars, they're going to market you to the world. If you have a signature guitar out, like Michael Schenker, played Gibson for a long time and then moved over and he played Dean guitars for a long time. He has iconic guitars, and that helps with a career. It really does. It just helps.
That's fucking bogging.
It's a shame, but it just kind of is the way it is. So yeah, Uli John Roth, at one point he did do the G3 tour with Joe Satriani. And again, we think of like people that played on the G3 tour. They almost all just are very tightly linked with a guitar brand, and that is big, because when record labels aren't spending money on getting your name out there, the instrument manufacturer may.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because you can go out and do clinics for the instruments, and
sure, it feels a little bit gross, but okay.
it is. It's a buying consciousness thing, and that side of things has always been a thing in metal. I think, well, maybe not always been a thing in metal, but it's certainly, a prominent thing in metal.
Sure.
When we think about like Sleep Token. That I'm pretty sure he plays Jackson guitars. I can see the guitar in my mind. Pretty sure he plays Jackson guitars, and it has an Evertune bridge on it. Like, all these things. Maybe I'm biased because I'm an instrumentalist. I play an instrument, but these things are relevant to me. Anyway, point is, Uli John Roth, he was their guitar player, went on to be their guitar player. So we are going to check out some of the Scorpions now. We're going to check out some of the early stuff. So this was recorded in 1971. Yeah, recorded in 1971, released in 1972. And so Michael Schenker was young, 1971. Yeah, 1971. So he's like, what, 16 at this point?
Sorry, that was at the picture of him, not at 1971.
Yeah. So he's really young on this. So let's take a listen. Let me bring them up.
So this is the Scorpions.
Yes, this is the Scorpions. And again, for anyone that is watching the podcast maybe for the first time, you're not going to hear this music. If you want to listen to the music, go and listen to it on Spotify, or check out the Patreon page, because that's how that works. Here we go. We'll just play through some of this and tell me when to skip. This is I'm Going Mad. I'm just going to bring up another track for you. So the Sails of Charon. Different people are going to pronounce this in different ways, but if we go with Charon, because Symphony X have Winds of Charon as a tune. This is Uli John Roth's era in the band, and it's a bit heavier. This is like one of their more popular more well known. So just to talk briefly about that, like we mentioned it while listening to the song, and Mel asked, like, is this before Van Halen? And it's yes, this is before Van Halen. Like, obviously Eddie didn't invent playing fast guitar.
Mm-hmm.
There were some really chopsy players around before Eddie, doing some really technically quite challenging stuff. Uli John Roth is a great example of that. But of course, Alan Holdsworth was kicking around in the 70s, like absolutely slaying it, like doing stuff that still to this day most people can't do. So chopsy players exist. I think it's always good to remember it. It's good to remember it.
Sure.
What did you think of that one? Heavier?
Yeah, heavier. It's feels very like psychedelic, very like trippy dippy, hippie. I think that the only thing that I would, and this is going to happen time and time again when we do any kind of metal, regardless of what era it's from, the less prominent role that the vocals play, the more I'm going to be like, but really? But there's a lot of choirs in like the early stuff as well. There's a really nice moment with that.
But it's a really interesting. We were talking about it in bed this morning. We were talking about, or it might have been last night, but we were talking about metal and songwriting. Oh, it's when we were talking about Black Label Society, I think, actually.
Oh, okay.
You remember where I'm saying, like, metal fans, for the most part, certainly in this day and age, they care less about the song, like the lyrics.
Yeah.
What the metal fan is interested in is the vibe.
Yeah.
So you could say maybe the composition. They're interested in the music. They want the heaviness. They want the beat, and they want to bang their head. Whereas the lyric is not quite as important. And it could be another, I guess, distinction between hard rock and metal. Again, different things for different people. But
Which it's bananas because, a lot of people talk about the secret meanings in a lot of early rock and metal bands' music and the secret meaning of the lyrics. And if you play the lyrics backwards, they summon the devil.
Yes.
It either matters a lot or not at all.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground.
So if I go for a couple of popular tunes, this is Wind of Change.
Yeah, okay, I'm aware of that. It's not Winds of Change. That's freaking me out. Like how well I know that song.
Yeah. But it actually surprises me because I don't know that one.
I hate it when stuff like that happens. Yeah.
But yeah, so what do you think of the Scorpions?
It's really bizarre. It started off like so representative of the early 70s of which it was made.
Psychedelic.
And it's definitely heavy. There's definitely some really cool guitar stuff going on. Uli
John Roth.
Uli John Roth.
On Winds of Karen. Sales of Karen.
He sounds fantastic on that.
He's a really great player.
Very good guitarist. Winds of Change, I have no idea why I know it, but I do. Feels very commercial. Was Winds of Change the theme tune to something?
It sounds like it was, it looks like it was synced in something. So that's always the reason, isn't it?
Yeah. This is the kind of stuff that annoys Levi, the life out of Levi. Like, I'll not remember really important details, but apparently I know a Scorpion song from 1991.
Yeah. Yeah, you've moved my guitar picks and can't tell me where they are, but you know that Scorpion song.
Sus.
Yeah, cool. So
I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, and I think there's going to be few things in the early parts of rock and metal that I'm not going to enjoy. Because it's closer to the music I would choose to listen to.
Yes.
Especially from that era. So, because, I'm not saying that they are the bridge between soul and rock, but I listen to a lot of Creedence and stuff like that.
Yes.
Which is more in line with stuff like this.
So we're going to move on and talk about the band UFO. So UFO were an English rock band formed in London in 1968. They became a transitional group between early hard rock and heavy metal and the new wave of British heavy metal. The band's final lineup consisted of vocalists, not really important. Worth noting that their guitarist at that point, when their final lineup was Vinnie Moore, who we will definitely be talking about when it comes to like 80s and 90s stuff.
Okay.
Shred guitar stuff. He's ridiculously good. So they went through several lineup changes, leaving Mogg as the only constant member. Disbanded 3 times.
Damn.
The band's classic lineup comprised of Mogg, former Scorpions guitarist Michael Schenker. Yeah, so UFO with Michael Schenker is definitely the one. Career span in 5 decades, 23 studio albums, 1 of cover songs, 14 live albums, 16 compilation albums, moderate success in the 70s and 80s, several albums and singles, including a 1979 album Strangers in the Night in the UK and US Top 40 charts, sold over 20 million records. Some of their most notable songs include Doctor Doctor, Rock Bottom, Natural Thing, Lights Out, Too Hot to Handle, Only You Can Rock Me. So the interesting thing with them is in the early years, again, as with a lot of these bands, they sound like a very different band, like a very different band.
Sure.
Because they were like psychedelic rock. If I put on their first record, you go all the way back, I think it's pretty sure it's just called UFO, the first album. So 1970. So let's just listen to the first couple of tracks on this. So this is the first track, Unidentified Flying Object.
Okay.
It's almost like at this stage in recording, in 1970, they haven't worked out that in order to make things sound like what you're clearly going for there, you need more than just a little thin guitar panned in the right. You've got this big rumbling bass sound, and the drums are huge, but the guitar just sounds so thin on top of it all. If you put a guitar left and right, chunk it up, I mean, there's only so much we had in terms of sound that you could get that was distorted in the 70s, but not. You could fuzz pedal, if you had guitar left and right, this would be really heavy.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, just that like they were obviously bound by the limitations of the technology that they had. That being said, it's kind of like you saying when we listen to the first track, oh, I don't see anything. I want to talk to a record label and be like, what did you see in this? And I always think about it, and it always blows my mind. People were making this music in the 1970s. It's so cool to me that people just woke up one day and were like, I've listened to a bunch of this music and now I want to make this band. And that's so cool. Like, who the fuck wakes up and just goes, I'm going to make this music in the 70s, you know? I mean, it's not for me. It's not for me. It's a little bit bland, but that's okay.
So let's keep going. So in 1974, this is when Michael Schenker joins the band, and their first album with Michael Schenker on the guitar is Phenomenon. Now, this is a good record. It has a couple of tracks on that were mentioned as being their more popular songs, Doctor Doctor and Rock Bottom. So let's check out Doctor Doctor, and then Rock Bottom is a banger.
Okay.
What did you think of Doctor Doctor?
I would mark this stuff in my own brain if you weren't here and we weren't doing a podcast as Dinosaur Dad Rock, and I
that's fair. I think that's pretty accurate.
And it's no shade to Dinosaur Dad Rock. It wouldn't be for me. I would pass over it and go, oh my god, this is so boring, and then move on. But that being said, better than the original, like the start.
Yes.
Better than the first album for suresies.
Yeah. So my favourite track on this is the classic Rock Bottom. So let's have a listen to Rock Bottom. I like Rock Bottom a lot.
Okay.
Get the idea.
Yeah, that was better than anything they've done. Okay. that was a sweeping statement, but you know, I mean, everything we've heard, I think that was probably one of the best ones.
Yeah, I thought they would be more in parity with each other, the Scorpions and UFO, in terms of the listens. But actually, the Scorpions seem to be a lot more popular, significantly more popular. 800 million streams to 70 million streams. So that's
a hell of a difference.
It's a chasm between them. Yeah. To me, it's that toe in the line of rock hard metal. Like what?
I would definitely call this rock. There's
Same.
maybe elements of it being slightly more grungy or slightly more distorted, but this is rock music.
Yeah, but it's
this is Dinosaur Dad Rock.
That's being able to look back, isn't it?
Sure.
Because you're never going to call. Let's pick a band like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, like obviously heavy metal.
Yeah.
But by today's standards, just old dad rock.
What?
Yeah.
Are people straight up saying that Judas Priest is dad rock?
Sounds like dad rock. Yeah. You listen to like
I can understand Iron Maiden.
Early Judas Priest. You listen to like Breaking the Law.
Breaking the law.
It's old dad rock.
Oh.
When you consider the metal that kids use, you think like if you took one of these tunes and just took a Judas Priest tune and just plonked it on the WWE 2K25 soundtrack next to fucking Poppy and Spirit Box and all the other bands, the Architects, like it's old dad rock. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm alright. I'm totally alright.
I'm not okay with it.
But it's the same as like blues as a genre, or where we could talk about things like jazz as a genre. There's modern jazz, like stuff that like Georgia's doing. And then there's, Cab Calloway.
Whom I love.
Sure, but that's old great-granddad rock. Great-granddad jazz.
That makes me want to kill myself because there's a lot of modern jazz that is garbage.
Sure, there's a lot of modern metal that's garbage.
Sure.
When genres are this old, like what they are to people is gonna change. So the final band that I wanted to talk about, and it was because I was listening to this stuff and it got me thinking about them as a band that I never would have considered as being a metal band, which in turn means that you can't really consider any of this metal because of course they sound the same. And that would be Kiss.
I'm so excited.
Why?
we've listened to Kiss on and off.
Yeah, because I like Kiss.
Yeah. Paul Stanley is a queen.
He is, yeah.
He's a queen. He's a diva. And it's the pageantry. It's the ghost of it all. I love bands. You've almost got to win with me if you present me with a band who dress up, do makeup, have full concepts to their albums. Like, I'm already in.
Yeah, and it comes out of that, doesn't it? The shock rock, the glam side of things.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't new. David Bowie was doing it.
Bowie.
Yeah.
Changes.
And Alice Cooper.
Yes, okay. We're talking about the winds of change. I sometimes think that's where I remember things, because I did get plonked a lot as a child in front of the TV
Yes.
to watch MTV and shut the fuck up. So I do think there was lots of these things that passed me by. Alice Cooper was weirdly one of them. Like, not passed me by, sorry, like I engaged with. It was music was on because Alice Cooper had big music videos and pageantry and makeup and...
I don't think of Alice Cooper as being particularly metal. But for the same reason I don't think
Which is bonkers to
Kiss
me.
being particularly metal. But some people say that this isn't metal, and they use it in a way to denigrate something. Whereas I purely do it from a categorization perspective in my mind.
I'm never
Sometimes
doing
I
it
want to listen to Kiss.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to listen to Meshuggah. They are not the same.
No. I'm never saying, when I say I don't think something's metal or I'm surprised something's metal, I'm not saying it in that wanky way that some people are like, oh, it's not metal.
Sure.
It's more that, like, but now I understand why Thin Lizzy were considered metal, because Thin Lizzy was something that I used to listen to a lot.
And the reason is based on that comment, because people who did consider themselves metal fans liked Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy, yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So Kiss, commonly styled as Kiss, were an American rock band formed in... They're still kind of working on doing things. Anyway, American rock band formed in New York City in 1973 by Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley and Peter Criss. For me, Kiss are the 70s Beatles.
Damn.
Because
that's a big statement.
Purely based on it being the Fab Four with a lineup.
Sure.
You know, that is the Kiss lineup. Their lineup has changed over the years. It's now just Paul and Gene. But Ace Frehley and Peter Criss on drums, that's the thing, right? So known for their face paint and stage outfits, the group rose to prominence in the mid-70s with shock rock style live performances which featured fire breathing, blood spitting, smoking guitars,
pageantry,
shooting rockets, levitating drum kits and pyrotechnics. The band went through several lineup changes, with Stanley and Simmons remaining the only consistent members. Final lineup consisted of Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer on drums. So with the makeup and costumes, band members took on the personas of comic book style characters: the Star Child, the Demon, the Spaceman, and Catman. During the second half of the 70s, Kiss became one of America's most successful rock bands and pop culture phenomenon. Due to the creative differences, Criss departed the band in 1980, followed by Frehley's departure in 82, replaced by Eric Carr, Vinnie Vincent. Vinnie Vincent, great player, great guitar player. And they took on different characters, the Fox and the Ankh Warrior. But ultimately, when people think of Kiss, it's strange because when Vinnie Vincent joins the band as the Ankh Warrior, it's like, oh, okay, the Ankh Warrior's in the band now. But eventually Kiss realised, no. What people want is the Demon, and they want the Spaceman, and they want the Cat. So now Eric Singer is the Cat. Yeah, so he's playing that role of the Cat.
The worst face.
Tommy Thayer is playing the Spaceman,
right?
Rather than them being So you get the point. Now, of course, we've listened to a fair amount of Kiss. If we look at their early years, Kiss traces its roots to Wicked Lester, a New York City-based rock band led by Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. That band recorded one album, which was shelved by Epic Records, played a handful of live shows. Simmons and Stanley, feeling a new musical direction was needed, abandoned Wicked Lester in 1942, forming a new group. After breaking up Wicked Lester in 1972, Simmons and Stanley came across an ad in the East Coast version of Rolling Stone, placed by Peter Criss, a drummer in the New York City scene who had previously played in bands Lips and Chelsea. Simmons and Stanley met Criss in a nightclub where he was playing drums. After hearing Criss sing, they thought Criss could be in the new band that they were forming. Criss then auditioned for and later joined the new band. The three focus on a much harder style of rock than before in an effort to secure a record deal, blah, blah, blah. Changed their name to Kiss. Ace Frehley joins the band. And that's them. Now, when you listen to Kiss's first album, or when I was first introduced to Kiss as a band, it was a visual thing first,
Yes.
then the music.
Sure.
And I remember seeing Gene Simmons and thinking, oh man, these guys are going to be heavy. Because it's corpse paint before corpse paint.
Sure.
When you think of all the black metal guys that do the actual corpse paint, it's white and black. And I know that music to be heavy,
Yeah.
so this must just be heavy.
Yeah.
Kiss aren't heavy.
And I'm glad for it.
Yeah, no, totally. And I say that, so when we listen to their first album, the first track on it is one of my favourite Kiss tracks. So self-titled album, Kiss, 1974, and it opens with Strata. I fucking love this tune. Ready?
Yep.
Now, as Kiss go on, you have the album Hotter Than Hell. There's no real big hits on that. And then if you just look at numbers, okay, Dress to Kill, numbers. You get to the last track and it has 537 million plays.
I wanna rock and roll all night.
This is actually something to point out. So drums are really important, to me at least, in what makes metal sound like metal.
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm a big Black Label Society fan. And I actually love their first album.
So mean.
Yeah. So, yeah, and Destroyer is a fucking great album. It's got Detroit Rock City on it and God of Thunder. Shout It Out Loud is a great tune. Beth is a great tune. Yeah, so there's tons of stuff. Kiss is a band that obviously I'll encourage you to do some listening to and add some things to the playlist.
Happily. I think they're fun. And they're a couple of steps, as I said, a couple of steps away from Creedence. And yeah, all right, it probably shouldn't be classed in as like heavy rock or metal at any point.
Sure.
But I don't know, if you're talking about metal being a vibe, getting dressed up like that feels pretty metal to me.
But that's the really interesting thing, isn't it, right? And a good way to close the episode. Vibe is right. Getting dressed up for the vibe is right. But I think that a lot of metal fans would probably look at the Kiss thing as the connection between the metal scene and rampant homophobia is a strong one. You know? Like, yeah.
We're not going to get along, metal.
Yeah. So, like, obviously Halford, like him leaving the band and then coming out as gay, like, it wasn't... Some people had no issue with it, but other people... Metal is a very masculine genre of music, and a lot of people had a lot of issue.
Which is fucking stupid.
Yeah, so no, of course, like that goes without, absolutely goes without saying. I just think that a lot of the metal that we often talk about, certainly during that era, would have had homophobic slurs to levy at Kiss and Kiss fans.
That's really shitty, but I get it. It's just part of our history, and we shouldn't erase it. We should remember it because we're doomed to repeat it. Do I think Paul Stanley is a screaming queen? Absolutely, yes. I do. Absolutely, I do. Do I think that that's lesser so? Absolutely not. If anything, if it turned out tomorrow that Gene Simmons was gay, I would become an even bigger Kiss fan. I'd be like, work. I want to listen to it all. But yeah,
I actually really like
sense.
Gene Simmons, but most Kiss fans are fans of Kiss in spite of Gene Simmons.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They pushed through what a reprehensible human being is just because they like the music. So, yeah, Kiss are cool. Scorpions cool. UFO cool. None of it really feels like metal.
None of it feels like metal. I'm not really into UFO. I think it was quite bland, to be honest. I think Scorpions got some cool stuff going on, and of course I'm going to like Kiss because it's so close to some other things that I listen to. I've heard it before.
Okay, well, we'll come back next week and we'll focus on Judas Priest.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. Are we doing Judas Priest next week?
Yeah.
I am of the firm opinion, and it changes day to day, but I am of the firm opinion that Rob Halford is top two
next
best
to only
metal
Dio,
vocalists. Next to only Dio.
Yeah.
It only switches around.
Okay, well, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Feedback in the comment section below. Go and check out the link to Piano in the description.
In the description.
And get yourself a free trial over there. Supports the podcast. We very much appreciate it. You know what I'm going to sign this off with, don't you?
Oh, God, what?
Until next week, suck a bag of Richards.
Yes.